Hello again, everyone. I am back with yet another serious, eye opening, and thought provoking message. The title, topic, or subject matter of this message is cassettes and films, or films and cassettes, and how they're related to the passage of time and their relation to the passage of time. And I had to do a part two of this because for some reason this app has, sometimes has not all the time, but sometimes this app has the tendency to, cut off while I'm in the middle of doing a message or something, an audio message. I don't know if this is going to be the whole 20 minutes, but we'll just see what happens, Lord willing. But anyways, for those of you that grew up listening or still do to this very day to cassettes and stuff, especially audio cassettes. I mean, even though we can't see this happening with video cassettes because they're inside a VCR unless it's transparent where you take off the top while it's operating or whatever. But I'm mostly talking about discussing audio cassettes because you can actually see what those doing in some cases. But anyways, for those of y'all that were bored, during childhood and decided to watch the thing as it played, as you very well noticed, the bigger the reel, in other words, the more film it had up there, you notice the slower that side move, but on the side where there was a lot less film, and the reel was smaller, it moved faster and stuff. And I'm not just only referring to audio and video cassettes and stuff. I'm also talking about, just regular analog film, like literal film that, they used back in the days of, the older days, back in the day, when they were using analog stuff, electronics and equipment and things of that nature and appliances and stuff. Because, everything now is in, not, I wouldn't say everything, but, we have many more things now that operate on a digital basis and, operate work by computers and things of that nature, computer programming and stuff. But moving forward, I would just like to say that, it's like that, down in our day, back in, when the society at last rebooted back in the early 1800s and stuff, I would say as early as the 18 teens, as late as the 18 teens, but, as early as, around the turn of the 18th, no, it wasn't 18th century, I'm sorry, the late 18th century, early 19th century, okay? So around the turn of the 19th century, that's when society last rebooted. And the reason why I came up with these numbers because there were 16 raptures in the Old Testament, and thus far there's been 8, and the ninth one lays just ahead. And if you add 1 plus 6, you take the number 16, you add 1 plus 6, that's the number of perfection, which is the number 7. In biblical numerology, that's God's number of perfection, okay? And up in our day, 8 is the number of new beginnings. So and also 9 is the number of the end. So with our last new beginning, this was a sign that, this is the final cycle of civilization. Okay. So with every cycle, they've also, because our history is a lie. Okay. This stuff that we're using today with smartphones and tablets and laptop computers, desktop computers, social media, all this stuff that you're seeing, running water, electricity, indoor plumbing and stuff, and wiring and stuff, all this stuff you're seeing today, it's been around off and on for thousands of years. Because for a long time, it never quite rang true that technology was the same from the Garden of Eden until, I would say, the turn of the 20th century, okay? When the 19th century was ending and the 20th century had begun, okay? It started, okay? I would say the dusk of the 19th century and the dawn of the 20th century, okay? Somehow that never rang true to me because I always wonder how our people got along for so long without that stuff. You have to understand that, when the Bible talked about how the nation turned away from the devil always used technology to do it. He always used television. I'm going to say the mainstream mass media like television, movies, internet, social media, newspapers. I'm going to say the news media in general, whether, it's been being broadcast or it's in print or whatever, or in audio form or whatever, like the radio or something. If devil was going to brainwash people, then he used technology to do it. And it's been off and on throughout history. And here's the deal. Of course, this isn't really my subject, but I'm making a point. So y'all will understand get the full context of, what I'm talking about, what I'm discussing or speaking of. So what I'm trying to say is, at every cycle was 250 years, more or less, okay? And what would happen is, things would start out innocently. God would call humans, he would create humans like he did Adam. He created a certain number of human beings, and the DNA was basically came from people that, you know, he picked up where he left off in a sense, okay? That's why everybody looks different. We got different races and stuff on the earth today. But the thing is, what happened was Satan came in there shortly there, because after all, you know, it's his time to, you know, rule the earth, so to speak, you know, have influence over the inhabitants, the events and stuff that occur down here. But still yet, God has the last say at the end of the day. But anyways, what will happen is shortly thereafter, Satan will come in and create, you know, put his creations, his fake humans among the real humans and stuff. You know, they will intermingle. But, you know, God had a hand in all of this. You know, he orchestrated everything that took place. So what happened is, you know, it would start out as horses and buggies with each, you know, 250-year more or less cycle. It would start with horses and buggies and so forth or whatever. And if there was any buildings left that were left over from the last flood, and may I remind you, Noah's flood was not the only time the earth got flooded and stuff like that. This has happened multiple times throughout history. I would say 24 times to be exact. And I also like to throw in that when you take 24, that's the total number of raptures that have taken place throughout human history, or the history of humanity / humankind. Okay, you take the total number, which is 24. You know, okay, 25. Okay, 25. It's been 24 raptures thus far, but the 25th one is coming up. When you take the number 25, 25 is a number of a quarter of a dollar. Okay, like a quarter that you spent, the coin that you spent at the store. Okay, so 25 cents is a quarter of a dollar. And the Bible talks about 4 quarters or 4 corners of the earth. And you multiply 25 times 4, and that equals 100. And 4 quarters or 4 corners represents north, south, and east and west. And also, according to the word of God in biblical numerology, 4 is the number of the earth. Okay. And when 2020 came in, okay, you add all those numbers up there in 2020. 2 plus 2 equals 4. And so the pandemic came up, and as y'all very well know, it affected the whole world in some way or another. It affected all of the Earth's or the world's or the planet's inhabitants, by the way. So that makes perfect sense. What's going on in our world. And, you know, the events and stuff, you know, it all, you know, gels together, so to speak. So anyway, the number 25, you take the number 2 and you add 5 to it. That's the number 7. And once again, that's the number of perfection, okay? In you know, according to biblical numerology. So this all adds up now. But anyways, as I was saying, you know, when society had first rebooted, and the only thing they got right as far as, you know, how long, you know, civilization had was when the Medes and the Persians took over. I don't remember how long it was exactly, but I know it was more than 200, but less than 300 years, though. Oh, it was more than 200, but less than 300 years. So they got that part right. So at first, it would start out with horses and buggies, and then we end up, you know, with the technology that we got now, okay? And then as a result, the world had become so wicked, and moreover, you know, as Satan was snatching people's souls and taking them to hell, and was cloning people, whether it's through snatching their souls or, you know, soulless babies being born to either one human that was real or the other one that was fake, where, well, I'm going to just say one or both of the parents were soulless, okay? They were clones, basically. You know, the clone population eventually, you know, outstripped, and very much by a vast majority, outstripped the population of real humans that have a soul and a spirit in their body, okay? Now, the devil resents this greatly, because this is one of the things they hate the most, is being exposed in this area, okay? Why you think when this stuff came out, the truths about these things, and of course, you know, about the black Jesus and who the real Jews were, and, you know, celebrities being replaced and being cloned, and you know, they having doppelgangers or doubles or whatever, and on top of that, they being cloned and replaced with synthetic versions of themselves, or having doubles or whatever. Since this stuff came out, as you very well noticed, the censorship on social media has increased by increments. Because if this stuff wasn't true, then why does the evil, wicked, fallen ones fight it so hard? Why do they fight it so hard? Why are they scared? Why are they in fear? Because that's obvious to me. But moving forward, for those of you that were children and you just pass the time by watching, you know, the audio cassette playing in the cassette player, the audio cassette player. As you notice that the bigger the reel was, there was more film. Or for those of you that are in the film industry, or, you know, in the business of dealing with film and stuff, as you notice, the more film that's on the reel, the slower that side of the reel moves. But on the side with less film, you know, that's smaller, you know, the reel that's smaller, you know, it moves faster. So in the beginning, when, you know, society rebooted and God had initiated a divine reset, because the earth had become so evil and wicked that, you know, that always Always, God is always before each rapture, by the way. God has always put his children through the fiery furnace so that, he'll purify them and unify them so, they'll be fit to be raptured up into heaven, because make no mistake about it, no sin is entering heaven, okay? Nothing that's impure, nothing that's artificial or deceptive or, causes abomination or whatever or corruption. None of that stuff is entering heaven, okay? It happened back in Noah's day. I'm pretty sure Noah and Elijah and Enoch, I'm pretty sure in each of their respective days, they probably had trouble with the government, because this isn't my subject either, but back in the day of Elijah, communism, there was a communistic takeover, okay? Communism has been around for thousands of years, okay? It's just gone by, they just didn't slap a label on it until a little over 100 years ago. And same thing with the Illuminati and Freemasonry. All that stuff has been around, and Roman Catholicism as well, and that Mohammedan Islamic Muslim religion. All that stuff has been around for, have been around for thousands of years, okay? This is nothing new under the sun. And a lot of these preachers out here have been lying to y'all about this. They've been lying to us. They still spewing the lies of, our history and stuff. But none of that stuff is true. And why you think in the Bible they tell you, don't let your flight be in the winter. And remember, this was, some 2,000 years ago. Because the rapture was about to take place, and Jesus was just, and like I said before, when the rapture always neared, because society always followed the same patterns, okay? When it was about to come to an end, believers probably had to go into hiding and all this stuff. I don't think it was in caves or none of that stuff, except for in the case of, third world countries or whatever, where they had caves and they had to hide out there or whatever. But I believe they just went underground or something. Like, I had dreams about me having to do, before this thing is over, just before the rapture takes place. But anyways, they said don't let your flight. And flight, it wasn't just talking about, fleeing on foot or whatever. But as is the case, just look at what's going on in Ukraine right now between Russia and the Ukraine, when the refugees, and even down in parts of Africa, they're war-torn, in the Middle East as well, they're war-torn. Because you in this day, you just don't have the option of fleeing on foot. You also flee, by car or by plane or whatever, by public transportation, like the bus or whatever, the train, airplane, airlines or whatever. It said, pray that your flight don't be in the winter. And it was also, the Bible wasn't just talking about traveling by foot, but it was also talking about traveling by car and getting away by car by means of motor vehicles and even by commercial airline flights or private jets or whatever the case may be. Because in the winter times, y'all very well know it's not safe to travel, whether it's on foot or by motor vehicle or even by plane, okay? And as y'all very well know, they cancel them flights when stuff like that comes up. So they say don't let your flight be in the winter or you ain't gonna be able to get away from where you're going. Okay, so there's a little subliminal message there. But as I was saying, it started out as horses and buggies and, people living off of the land and stuff and, growing their own food and whatever, not having running water, electricity and indoor plumbing and stuff. And then it always ended up like, what we're in today. So, and back then time moved slower and that was beneficial for those, because, it was just an overall slower society because we didn't have all these labor saving devices that, replace manual labor basically. But now nowadays we got all this technology, we got all these labor saving devices. It leaves us with more time to do other things that need to be done. But anyways, so as we approach the end of this age, spiritually, because y'all have to understand that what happens in the physical slash natural is directly affected by and influenced by what happens in the spiritual slash supernatural realm, okay? So here in the physical, it's related to films and cassettes, and whether audio or video or just regular film, analog film. Films and cassettes and films and cassettes, okay? And, when society rebooted, it was represented by, the side of the reel that had all that film on it. So, as time moves so fast approaches the end of this age, the reel is getting smaller and thus it's moving faster. And that's why God has allowed time to speed up, because, he's merciful and stuff. He knows that, stuff is kind of getting a little tough down here. So back then, one reason why time moves a little slower, because, stuff was more tolerable. We still had to wait, and devil didn't fight us as hard because we didn't know quite as much and stuff. And a lot of us didn't know the truth about what was going on. A lot of stuff that was going on in the kingdom of darkness was a well-kept secret. But now that we're approaching the end of, Satan's world, at the end of this age, we're approaching the conclusion of this, the world as we know it. God is letting all this stuff be revealed. Of course, Satan will get angrier and come against us more, because the more we know about what's going on in his kingdom, less power that he has. So he's going to retaliate by, oppressing us more and more. Okay, but so the enemy means it for our harm, but God has a way of turning that stuff, out for our good. So as the Bible says, he has beauty for ashes. God can make, he can take ashes and ruins and stuff and make something beautiful out of it. But anyways, God is merciful, so that when the pressures begin to come down and stuff, and they begin to persecute people, and it won't last long. Okay, we ain't got to deal with it long, because time moves so quickly. Because as y'all very well know, when you're having a good time, time passes pretty quickly. But when you're in the midst of a fiery trial, and you're having a tough time and stuff, time seems to slow down. It's like Albert Einstein said, who's an Illuminati puppet or whatever, and never even a real person, just Illuminati character. I also suspect this individual is transgender as well. But anyways, he said that, or she, or I'm gonna just say Albert Einstein said that when you're sitting beside your crush, and I'm paraphrasing, if you sit beside them for 3 hours, it feels like 3 minutes. On the other hand, if you stick your hand in a hot stove for 3 minutes, it feels like it's been in there for 3 hours. Okay, so that's the way it is with good times versus bad times that we have in life. And as I said before, the reason why time is sped up, because in the spirit realm, if you could get your eyes open to what's going on in the spirit realm, as we approach the end of this age, the real is a lot smaller. So that's why time is moving faster, because there's less film on the reel, because we got all that time that's behind us. And of course, with the film, it moves slower. Okay, when there's a lot of film, the more film that's on the reel, the slower it's going to move. On the other hand, the less that's on the reel, the faster it's going to move. So that's one reason why time is sped up. Another reason is just that God is merciful, and he knows that we're gonna, when the problems begin to come down on the bride of Christ, we gonna, that for those of us that are against the system, it's not gonna last quite as long. Okay, and I want y'all to know that. I want y'all to be encouraged that time, whatever trouble comes our way, is temporary. These years, just like the good years. The good years went by pretty quickly, back when we were eating all that good food and listening to all that good music, and we had more freedoms, and we hung out all these places that were fun and stuff. God was just giving us a glimpse of what the heavenly realm is going to be like. So if I were y'all, I wouldn't dwell too much on the good old days, because even back then, stuff happened that I would rather forget. And also, I even looking back on that time, I'm even shocked by even today's standards, by how wicked the world was. So this world has always been controlled by the prince of darkness. So which do you prefer? A dung heap, which represents this world, the world of flesh, the devil, seeing self as Satan? Or do you want eternal life in heaven with a mansion where you never have to die or suffer, or, have to endure the limits of, this physical realm? So what I'm trying to say is, the African Christians especially, they always keep saying there's no time, but they never throw in the fact that time is sped up, and thus we don't have time to waste. So I'm gonna just go ahead and interpret that when they say that there's no time, that basically means we don't have no time left to spare or waste or squander, on just a bunch of nonsense and foolishness. It's the things of this world, the flesh, the devil, as well as seeing self as Satan. Okay, we need to just give it our all, and so when we serve Jesus, because this stuff is going to have an effect on how many rewards we get at the judgment seat of Christ, if you get what I'm saying, okay? Because the Bible says to redeem the days. In other words, we need to make the best use of our time, because the days are evil and time is passing quickly, and there's no more time left to waste, okay? But if there's no further ado, I hope y'all got blessed by this, and I hope you learned something new, and I'm out. Peace. Shalom.